AsianScope. Hello, I'm the Asian film fanatic. Whenever I hear a desire for diversity in movies, one word gets batted around over and over again.
Representation.
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 Representation. Representation.
Representation. Representation.
Asian represented in Hollywood. Representation. What are your thoughts? More?
Representation.
Representation. Because every time I see this...
He came to America. But when he is falsely accused of murder, he must run again, searching for the truth.
Or this...
Guess that alarm was fake too. Whoop whoop, my ass.
Am I supposed to think, yeah, that's me, man, right? I'm them. I'm Bruce Lee. I am Jackie Chan.
I'm Tiger Woods.
I'm Tiger Woods.
I am Tiger Woods. Is that what we mean? How about this?
Well, I got an earful when you didn't.
Yeah, Asian men, in your face, ladies. I'm a sex symbol. Flashlight my abs. And my nipple, too. Or does it mean this?
It's the 626, man. Check the address. Homer, Sriracha, Panda.
You know how many people want to be black now? You know how many kids want to be... We wanted to be black. I still kind of want to be black.
Yo, bro, representing 626. I'm a rapper. I'm so cool. Yo, my dong is so long it stretches from here to Hong Kong. Is that what we mean? Does it mean this?
I'm a human panda. I go human panda. I'm a human panda.
Bamboozled, Chingstronaut. Bamboozled. Yeah, these guys represent all of us, right? God, no. There has to be a mistake. It can't be that bad, right?
Representation.
So what exactly does representation mean? Representation. One that represents.
Oh man, represent, please, represent.
The act or action of representing.
Oh man, please, represent.
Well, thanks a lot, Webster. Okay, let's take a look at this real book. Represent. R-E... Oh, okay, here it is. 1. To be, a sign or symbol of, stand for. 2. To speak or act for. Oh yeah, it's that bad. These people don't symbolize me. They don't speak or act for anyone other than themselves. What the hell's wrong with you idiots? So why do people keep saying they want representation? It's because they're all too aware of the associative effects that media portrayals can have on general audiences. And we have another word for it, stereotype. It's about the anticipation of generalizations cultivated in the eyes of an audience. In a way, the notion of representation hinges on the unfortunate inevitability of viewers stereotyping. It's a mistake we all can make, but it's also one we need to deconstruct. Oh, I saw this documentary on Asians, and that's how they all are. You just saw one perspective. Unfortunately, stereotypes establish themselves more often with popular and repeated depictions of a single character type, and are especially dominant where knowledge and exposure on the other are limited. Now, when minorities say they want representation, it's the desire to replace negative stereotypes with lasting positive ones. What they're also seeking is an affirmation of identity. They want a positive role model, a hero, a myth, a star, a celebrity, an idol. Someone who's elevated up on a pedestal both for themselves and others to look up to, admire, and relate to. The bottom line motive driving diversity is to counter racism. Racism we experience in real day-to-day life. In this case, from negative stereotypes perpetuated on shows and media. It's all too easy for racism to show up in cinemas these days, and it's always been that way. I think the most inadvertent racism is derived from ignorance and lack of familiarity. The less creators know about another race or culture, the more likely you're going to get them wrong or take shortcuts on character. But are we then merely seeking the strongest depiction we want ourselves defined as or associated with among those who are unfamiliar with Asians? Are we just seeking someone else's approval as regular Americans? Are we just trying to show that we're real people with overly amazing characteristics? I find these notions to be rather problematic, if not cringy at times, especially with forcing the latter portrayals. And the terminology is just plain flawed. When it comes to film portrayals, let's be mindful not to confuse truth and fiction. Representation still relies on simplistic interpretations and a flawed perspective of stereotypes. Let's put a little more introspection into the relationship between creators, content, and viewing in the context of media.
Time for the medicine! Cheers!
I used to look at Asian movies and go along with the description representation, but the more I thought about it, I realized this is an improper perspective. I just call representation bad terminology. Does this person look like me? No. Well, are they sort of like me? We have comparable racial features. East Asians sort of share similar cultural historical roots. Okay, so lump us all together then. That's like saying Englishmen, French, and Russian. It's all the same white. These roles don't represent all Asians, real life, or real people. This is a short-sighted and deceptive way of looking at movies and the actors who perform in them. A fictional movie can only go as far as representing a filmmaker's creative psyche, their desires, and deciding what to show. Some movies can make a statement or give socio-philosophical insights, but don't forget, this is mostly content that is primarily driven by entertainment and box office success. The goal isn't documentation, it's audience approval, a fantasy reproduction more than actual representation. When I watch most movies, especially fiction, I'm not watching actuality, I'm not even looking at real life. The best these types of stories can do is flavor plot lines with wit, intelligence, or social commentary. Representation is not the best way of describing diversity and inclusion if you ask me. I'd rather just say things like, I want to see more Asians in film and television, or I'd like to see greater exposure, popularity, acceptance. It's nice to see more Asians in America. Better, more positive portrayals and exposure is what we're really seeking. Now, do I ever watch a film with a good protagonist and a good story and feel involved? Like I'm living the moment? Yeah, of course, I can pretend. I can do kung fu. I'm a wannabe gangsta. I'm in fake Singapore.
It's all fake. This is all fake because this is actually in Malaysia.
When I have a crush so intense.
I only date white guys, and I hate Asian men.
What's going on?
I can play along. All kidding aside, it can feel great when a character says or does something that clicks. But when I'm watching a movie, I'm experiencing the world through their eyes. I'm living their story more than they're living mine. These movies, for the most part, aren't necessarily who we are, but who we think we are and who we want to be. Take a look at Bruce Lee. More people want to be Bruce Lee than Bruce Lee being one of us. He's extraordinary, or as Han would say, more extraordinary than he is ordinary. This is not representation. This is exceptional. There's only one Bruce Lee. Okay, so maybe there is Bruce L.I., Bruce L.A.I., Bruce L.E., Bruce Ty, Bruce Cutout, Soccer Bruce, Bruce CGI. We all can try to imitate Bruce Lee, but we all know there's only one Bruce Lee, one Jackie Chan, one Jet Li.
After this, there will be only one.
You look just like me.
These stars will be often imitated, but never matched. I get that we all want to be the hero. We all want to save the day. We all want to get the love of our life. We all want to get the MacGuffin. We all want to achieve what we set out to do. We all want to make things right. The happy Hollywood ending. But let's not forget the context of show business and that most of us watch movies for entertainment rather than education. The way representation should be viewed is on an individual basis. The reality of movie roles falls under two categories, fiction and non-fiction. A written person is a fantasy character. However, a real person equals another different person. And the only person that represents me is me. Fictional on-screen portrayals should be regarded only as one perspective, imaginary. These are roles that go about as creative depictions in a made-up story. What most movies do represent are characters, myths, illusions, and writers' fantasies. Movies are a world of make-believe, the creation of stories, heroes, role models, and villains. It's just a movie, as they say. Don't get me wrong, I think it's fine to indulge in fantasy, but if you're going to lie to yourself, at least admit the lie, and don't make the mistake of proclaiming this portrayal is reality or meant to represent an entire race. That's not to say truth can't come from fiction, but it's not the most reliable source for credibility. The only reality we can extract from movies are the valuable insights into the craftings of the creators. Even people in reality shows and documentaries aren't representation. In real-life news or non-fictionals, we're not always dealing with you, but rather showcasing specific people. Documentaries focus on interesting individuals, unique people, and unique circumstances. They offer glimpses into the lives of someone else, but even depictions of reality carry a level of illusion. I might not even be wearing pants for all you know. It's hard to act natural when you know you're being recorded. It's easy to play up for the camera. And that doesn't even cover the film production aspect. Rarely does anyone ever show what goes on behind the camera. Where the flaw of fiction is fantasy, the risk of reality is bias. When I watch films and actors, I ask myself, do I identify with this character? Am I rooting for this protagonist? Do I like this person? Is it a good story? Is it a good role? Whenever I spot an Asian on film or TV, the buzz of, hey, there's an Asian, dies down quite quickly. Rather, it matters more if I'm interested in the program and whether I care about the role. I look to empathize and step into that world as a passive observer. This is the relational dynamic in film, movies and movie watchers, actors and fans, dreams and reality. One is more actual, but which do we want others to believe? The reality or the myth? The answer may be trickier than you think. As we often put our best face forward, we put a mask on features that are a part of ourselves all the time. We don't always completely reveal our narrative or always tell the whole story. You know how in tourism they only present a location as exciting, interesting, and attractive? Or how on Facebook we're always showing off our best picture? That's sort of the same goal as movies. It presents stories as more stimulating, exciting, entertaining, and eventful than the lives most of us live. The actors who play these roles usually aren't being themselves, they're acting. None of what you see is real, none of the scenarios are real, it's all a construct. In fiction, we need to be made aware of what's fantasy, and in reality, we need to be made aware of what's biased. That's not to say we can't get any insight on real life or on shows inspired by real life, but there are different levels of illusion. Movie realism can range from understated to wildly exaggerated, and movies present themselves in various forms. Documentary, cinema verite, slice of life, and fantasy are just a few examples. Sometimes a fictional story can be quite realistic, and other times a depiction can be quite artificial. But the best way to think about it is to view fiction as more of a truth to creativity, imagination, inspiration, and desires. Nonfiction, on the other hand, is a truth to the perception of reality. What's sad and unfortunate is that audiences have a tendency to blur movie fiction and reality. It's regrettable when the characters we see in media become misconstrued into real-life stereotyping and racism. It's as flawed as giving higher credence to a voice on the basis of celebrity and fame. It's a socio-psychological misstep if you ask me. While I think there's a point to playing that game to your advantage, I still say the representation angle is a con. We need to see through people who create new myths, or rather, people who seek to present myths as reality and take them with a grain of salt. There's nothing more deceptive than creating a fake narrative and pushing it as truth. Let's get this straight. In fiction, these are actors who put on a performance, like good theater.
The word superstar really turned me off, and I'll tell you why. Because the word star, man, is an illusion. It's something what the public calls you. You should look upon oneself as an actor, man. I mean, you would be very pleased if somebody say, hey, man, you are a super actor. It is much better than, superstar.
Bruce Lee may be the most honest actor to truly express himself as he is, but he was still playing characters. They put on a show. It should be seen and appreciated as such. To put this into the right perspective, the real question we should be asking ourselves is, why watch movies? Film is a window into a world, but most of us watch to escape reality. It can be fun, a distraction, a different perspective. We want to sympathize and empathize with these characters. We want to see life through their eyes and experience it too. I understand we want to be liked and admired. We want to be understood. Watching movies can be an experience, a shared experience. At some level, the only aspect that crying representation taps into is being pro-Asian or pro-ethnicity. It's the desire to increase the value of a shared racial identity. Not only does this have to do with how others view us, but how we define ourselves. Sometimes I think about race like a sports analogy. I'm more inclined to root for the home team. We want to be the best. We want to make the winning shot.
Lin puts it up. Bang! Jeremy Lin from downtown.
We want to be the champion.
The winner of Survivor Cook Islands.
We seek familiarization, likeness, people who look like us, who are on the same side. Someone who looks like a family member, a brother, a sister, an auntie, an uncle. Individuals with similar culture, the same background, and shared experiences. But would I look to them and say, that person's representing me? Not really. It's a spectatorship. Maybe in a very loose sense. In spirit, there's a connection. I can be patriotic and cheer for Team USA at the Olympics.
The greatest moment
But I'd rather not utilize representation the same way we're utilizing stereotype. It's possible for any stereotype, even good ones, to backfire if you keep pushing it.
On some level, you've been reduced to concussion guy. 3 Olympics, 989 points in 989 games, second in the Hart Trophy balloting, a Lady Byng winner. You're an important player in the league, and there's been this reduction of your career into one thing.
You know, I like to be remembered for the type of player I was on the ice when I was playing and not when I was out.
I mean, I don't like it when someone goes, "Hey you Bruce Lee, Jeremy Lin, Jackie Chan." Yeah, ha 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 ha. I guess that's meant to be one of those fake compliments, but you're too stupid to realize how dumb that sounds. You know, it's funny. We have negative stereotypes in cinema.
Do you speak any English? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Hey, dim sum, you's a real funny man. Dim sum. If it ain't my man, dim sum.
And we have stereotype breakers that made us fans of Kung Fu. Cheer for martial arts, stand for empowerment. But for some, it's backfired. It's become, oh, I don't want this Kung Fu stereotype anymore. And I can somewhat sympathize with that sentiment. Not because I don't appreciate martial arts or action, but I also like comedy that's actually funny, romance, drama, etc. We need diversity in story as much as diversity in color. Sometimes I like watching a flawed character. It shows we're all human. Even losers can be lovable.
I may not be the best singer around the world, but I know that I sing from my heart.
Personally, I think comedy and being able to laugh with and at ourselves with self-effacement is an enduring quality. When it comes to cultural stereotypes, sometimes it's nice to see an Asian in an American role that doesn't need to be so heavily cultured in order to justify its existence.
Are you too Western for Oriental audiences?
I have been criticized for that. But when I go back to the States, it seems to be the other way around. You know what I mean?
You're too exotic, eh?
Yeah, man. I mean, they're trying to get me to do too many things that are really for the sake of being exotic. Unfortunately, such thing does exist in this world. Business-wise, it's a risk. And I don't blame them, I mean, in the same way, it's like in Hong Kong, if a foreigner come and became a star, if I were the man with the money, I probably would have my own worry of whether or not the acceptance would be there. But that's all right, because if you honestly express yourself, it doesn't matter, see? Because
are you,
I'm all for more minorities in lead roles. Though when a Hollywood executive chooses, say, a white lead over an Asian lead because they think it's more marketable, on the business side, I get that marketability. But as an audience member, I know what I like and what I don't. The worst thing Hollywood can do is cultural race swapping or yellow facing. We also know what's discriminatory and what's not. I have the choice not to go along with it. I have the choice to choose something even better. If I want to see great Asian leads, Asian film has a long and rich history of them. More Americans may choose white bread over rice, but that doesn't mean there isn't room for a Chinese restaurant or a sushi joint to be successful. Variety is the spice of life.
That in the United States, I think the true Oriental should be shown.
Hollywood sure as heck hasn't.
You better believe it, man. I mean, it's always that pigtail and bouncing around, chop, you know, with the eyes slant and all that. And I think that's very, very out of date.
Is it true that
when we say, I want others to look at us better, not stereotype me, and we think movies will do the trick, on some level, I think it sounds like a really superficial theory. Like, really? Movies and media depictions will control all these racist viewpoints? Let's consider the flip side for a moment. I watch Hollywood movies, there's white stereotypes, and I know plenty of white people in real life. Sure, I can amuse myself thinking about white stereotypes, but does Hollywood shape my real life expectations and interactions? No, I don't think so. I don't idolize whiteness, I don't hate myself, I've never wished I was white before. And for my Asian brothers and sisters who have, what the hell's wrong with you? You have a mental disorder. You know how often I've personally encountered racism from non-Asian acquaintances? I can't even remember any. Overall, people have been pretty decent in the 21st century. Most sources of racism I encounter seem amplified by media and the internet. Now, I have experienced blatant, intentional, and malicious racism to my face before, but only on rare random occasions and from complete strangers. Something tells me those bastards aren't going to be considerate and respectful all of a sudden, even if you force them to watch positive portrayals. I mean, here's the game you're playing. You're basically trying to impress or cater to people who stereotype. You're trying to replace one cliche with another. Now, some people are innocent stereotypers who just come from a place of lack of exposure. Ignorance is a mistake we all can make. And if you are one of those people who aren't lacking in exposure and are still buying into racism, all I have to say is, you idiot! Some people make dumb jokes, in which case mass anger can be persuasive. But there are others who just want to get on your nerves. It's like, yeah, when trolls, racists, and bullies see us from a different angle, they'll totally have a change of tune and won't have any put-downs to dish. With this idea, I guess the game plan is their eyes will be opened and they'll love us so much they'll admire and respect Asian culture. You know, I'm pessimistic. I think such overt racism is just another way of being an a-hole. It may work for the innocent, but not the troublemakers. There's a difference between racism that's unintentional versus racism that is intentional. The innocent needs less convincing and more familiarity, but the troublemakers will always be determined to make trouble. If we increase exposure, in some ways I'd anticipate what's already happening. We already have an odd relationship between anime and otakus. We'll get kind of a cult movement of social extremes. Some may be inspired to cultural appropriation and be more Asian than American-born Asians themselves, which is not easy to pull off. But if you can acculturate to a level of authenticity, sincerity, humility, fluency, mastery, and respect, more power to you. It can be twisted though, as some roles seem to promote Asian fetishes and weeaboos. We don't want that. Hollywood seems to have influenced Asian women by fostering and supporting a white boy fetish, that's for sure. Racial fetish and cultural appropriation are a consequence of over-promoting positive stereotypes into mass popularity. Even though representation is more myth than reality, don't get me wrong, I love a good character. If contained in their proper place with the proper perspective, I don't have anything against loving movie stars, celebrities, glorifications, hero worship, role-playing, role modeling, or fiction. I like seeing more Asians in better roles all the time, just as long as they're not obnoxious, arrogant, annoying, overhyped, god-awful, or make me cringe. That's a tough order. But at least personally, we need to be aware of how to properly interpret these roles and see through the illusion of representation. We need to be careful not to fall into the same trap of labeling. It's so misguided to endorse the notion that someone's role represents all people of a certain color. That portrayal speaks and acts for an entire culture. That person automatically speaks my voice. I love movies, Asian ones in particular, but also different types. Because at our core, all humans love a good story. Our relationship with media should be one of empathy and entertainment. If it's education you want, documentary and reality do better. Hey, if you really want to be an influence, reach out, travel, share, interact, talk to someone, be nice, make a friend. Stand up against racism. It's the ordinary connections that can make a real difference. There's no better way to represent than to live by your own example. But when it comes to movies, all humans love a good protagonist. We all share the same emotions. We laugh. We love. We cry. We struggle. We triumph. We all want to see a little bit of us in them and a lot of them in us. I know a lot of you are going to look at this video and say, "Hey, I don't approve of this guy. This guy sucks. That's just his opinion. Who made you spokesperson for all Asians? He doesn't represent us." And you're totally right. I don't. I'm the Asian Film Fanatic, and I'll see you later.